the miracle, doc, they counted me out. Moment of truth, counting it down. Underdog story was down for the count. Back on my feet, back with a mic, back on the beat, back with a family that bang in the streets. The game on lock, I stand with a key. Standing my ground, I am planning to flee. Standing my ground, I am planting my feet. Taking a stand, embracing my destiny, shaking his hand, flipping the script.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday night CrossFit Talk. We're here, just Carolyne and I tonight, as Jamie is busy putting her gym back together after an amazing remodel. But now she has to get everything back on the floor, get everything in place, mop up, clean up, do all that kind of stuff. And so she is still at her gym right now doing all that stuff. And we feel bad. I feel bad. I know what that's like. You're so tired from doing all that work, and now you have to kind of clean it all up.
Yeah, so she's probably just sneaking in a few workouts here and there. I did see her go on a rig at some point this week, so
she had to try it out, right?
Yeah, things are moving along, though.
Yeah. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notifier so you're the first to know when new stuff comes out. And if you listen to us on Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes or any of those podcast platforms, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Tell everybody how much you like what we do here, because we like having you here. With that, we'll get started on everything. Just to get caught up on some things, I saw an Instagram story that I wanted to share real quick. And it's kind of like what happens when a pro hockey player goes for a quick little casual skate.
It was very casual. My sister's filming, so I can't really skate very fast.
But you are passing people like they are standing still.
I mean,
I watched them like she is just zooming by every single person on this track.
My sister's holding her own, though.
Did she ever play hockey or skate as a kid?
She played a little bit up until maybe she was 9 years old. So we go like maybe once a winter where we'll skate together. This is my older sister. So my twin played growing up. She was a goalie, but only me. So,
and this is from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no.
Yeah, this is my perspective. This is just me holding my phone and just gliding out there.
Just gliding.
It's a cute little like trail path that they'll do every winter. But some people don't understand that the inside track should be for like faster.
Yeah.
Because you'll see some people like holding hands, just like going very close to the edge, and you'll see here someone learning how to skate, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh.
But it was fun.
So is it typical to have a track in Canada, or I've never seen a track before?
So a lot of times it's just like outdoor rinks, like more just like people just go in a circle. There's a few of them that will be like that, or some people will go on a pond. But this is like a nice figure eight, and it's just like maybe 10 minutes from here, not even from my house, down the street from my gym at CrossFit Coliseum. So it's easy to get to. I discovered it a few years ago, and I've been going every winter since, because it's cute. And like during the day, they have these like plastic chairs that people can push around if they don't know how to skate. But so during the day it gets pretty packed, but if you go to the evening time, like at 9:30, the building beside it closes. So all of those plastic thingies go back into the building. So that normally means that the people that are like more learning how to skate are no longer on the ice at that point. And then they have the lights on and some music playing. So it's just nice. It's fun.
So you mentioned like people don't know to let the inside for the fast skaters. Jeffrey Birchfield says, sounds like the roadway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you're just like, what are you doing?
I think D Reed says ankle skater. I don't even know what that means.
Well, like normally, like you like ankle benders, the people that are like just kind of like not very good skaters. Like, well, that's like a term that we'll use. I don't even necessarily say ankle skater. I'll use ankle bender. It just because like the skates kind of like bend at their ankles and they're like not as proficient.
When I was a kid, we were at the rink every day. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been skating. It's been so long since I've been on the ice. But like,
does it fill your cup to do that? Like,
I mean, I like skating, but I'm probably going like 40% speed. It's like I like skating fast and just kind of feeling like the wind in your eyes and stuff. But just kind of skating with a view is just different. Like it's nice. What I miss about hockey is more my teammates.
Yeah. I love feeling the wind in my face when I was skating.
Get like watery eyes.
Yeah. We just didn't have hockey where I grew up. If we would have, I think that would have been maybe my number one sport. I loved being on the ice.
It's fun.
See, I've had a crazy weekend. My wife had her surgery on Monday. Still is not able to get up on her own out of a chair or anything like that. So I'm having to lift her whenever she needs to go to the bathroom or get dressed, anything like that. Man, it is taking it out of me.
A lot of work.
Yeah. Last night I got called 3 times in the middle of the night to come get her to go to the bathroom. And just trying to get sleep is really tough. Plus we have a bed in the middle of our living room, which is very unusual. And it takes away a lot of space to kind of like do things. And we are together 24/7 now because she's right there all the time. But we're making it through and she's getting stronger. Like I can tell the last couple of days, I don't have to lift as hard to get her up. So I think tomorrow will be 1 week.
Is it her strong knee or her like weaker knee? Like, because she has both of them that she would need to do, right?
Correct.
Like so just getting up, like, because she's got to go onto one leg, like almost like a pistol, I guess, coming out from sitting down.
Yeah. So she has her surgically repaired knee and she has her weak knee. So neither of them are good. And what the PT people have been telling her, like she has to start trusting the surgically repaired knee because it is strong. It is stronger than what she had before. It's just pain tolerance as that's healing. But we have her on this machine that bends her leg 3 times a day for an hour each. And she's up to like 70% angle, 70-degree angle on the bend. So she's doing really well there. And but we're on the way to recovery. Hopefully we can get her back upstairs where she can shower, where she can sleep in her own bed within the week. That's what the goal is this coming week.
Yeah, that's a good goal. Just a little bit more every day.
Yeah. D. Reed says, what province are you from, Carolyne?
The great province of Ontario.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
We used to go up to Toronto all the time when I was a kid.
So I'm from Sarnia, Ontario, which is across the border from Port Huron, Michigan, like 10-minute drive to Port Huron, Michigan, about an hour from Detroit. That's where I grew up.
Yeah. Well, that was beautiful. And that's in Toronto, the skate
Yeah.
trail.
Technically, it's in a city called Etobicoke. That's where I live. It's like I'm like on the border of Etobicoke and Toronto, but it's southwest of Toronto.
Vi, late go Birds. Yeah, I'll go Birds this week because I hate the Packers, but we'll see next week.
I've converted into a Bills fan for the playoffs.
It used to be that Toronto was pretty much like home for Bills fans, it
is.
So that makes sense. And they played well today.
Oh yeah.
Real well.
Their next game's gonna be tough though.
So I'm going to skip around on the rundown that we have because we were talking about this before we went live. You sent me a link to a podcast. I am about a little over halfway through it. It's got to be one of the most enjoyable podcasts I have watched in a long time, because a lot of times when I'm watching a podcast, I'm information seeking for this show or other shows, but this was Justin Medeiros' channel with Dallin Pepper and Jason Hopper, and the three of them just sitting around shooting the breeze. And I have been laughing so hard. They are making fun of each other. They're ripping on each other. They're telling stories that are incredible. The one highlight for me was Jason Hopper always would dive into people's DMs and talk smack. He did it to Matt Fraser before he knew him. If he would beat him in a workout, like in the open, he would send a DM to Matt. Then when they met, Matt opens up his DMs and he sees all the stuff that Jason had sent to him in the past. And then the next thing he tells is that when Luke Parker was on The Bachelor, he was really into that season and he was blasting Luke in the DMs the entire season. Runs into Luke Parker at Atlas Games during the COVID year where Atlas gets canceled. They're on the same flight back home and there's an empty seat next to Luke. So Hopper has all these questions for him about the season. They sit down together on the plane. He's answering all these questions. Luke asks Hopper for his IG account. Luke goes, "Oh my gosh, I have a message from you." And it's all these things blasting him for being a douche on The Bachelor. And Jason's like, "I am so red and so embarrassed. I had forgotten I had done all that." I can't even imagine like where you would come up with just sending DMs to people, blasting them on a reality. My mind doesn't work that way, but it was a hilarious story. And it just goes to prove you can't hit unsend. Like once you send that message, it could come back and bite you at any point in time.
Well, back then they didn't have the unsend button, so it depends how long ago those messages were. But it's a good podcast, and Justin does a good job of leading the conversations and asking some fun questions. And I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't watched it, hop on Justin's channel and give that a listen.
Yeah, and apparently it's going to be at least a 3-part series where they're going to rotate between the 3 channels leading up to Wodapalooza and one show after.
It would be cool if he continued and got a few other friends on and like shoot the shit with them. Just because it's like it's a different type of podcast than just someone interviewing and asking them questions. Like they're more just sharing experiences and stories, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, there was a part of behind the scenes at West Coast Classic last year that Savon had done, where it's just Jacob Hepner, Brent Fikowski, and Pat Vellner just sitting in a tent talking, and nobody's asking them questions. He just recorded the 3 of them talking to each other, and I thought that was one of the best things I had seen in any of those shows ever. Because it was unscripted. It was just the 3 of them talking to each other.
That's what you want to see, is those type of conversations and just real behind the scenes.
Jay Burt says that was karma for Hopper. It sure was. But I guess they're cool now and friends and everything. But, and I know I've talked to Luke. He took a hit when he was on The Bachelor. And the producers really made him look bad. But I never watched an episode, so I don't really know anything about it, but there's that. So one thing I did not prepare is I'm going to look it up right now. CrossFit this week announced their CrossFit Athlete Council. And it is split into 3 groups. And there we go. So I'll share my screen real quick with that. It's split into 3 groups. The first one is individuals and coaches. This is Olivia Grimsland, Spencer Panchek, Taylor Self, Colton Mertens, Ryan Dickey, and Yasmin Arroyo. I know 3, and I might know Yasmin, but I'm not sure. I know Spencer, Taylor, and Colton, and I might know Yasmin, but I do not know the other 2. Do you, Carolyne?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those 3 as I don't think so.
And then affiliate and team is Andrew McLaughlin, Gio Benitez, Matthew Young, Justin Rementer, Mahmoud El Zayat, and Harry Yeager.
I'm not familiar with any of them as well.
Yeah, me neither. And then finally, we have divisional with Carly DeMonico, Rebecca Voigt-Miller, Nathan Black, Jason Grubb, Tim Murray, and John Kim. I know 3 of the 6 there as well. So I know.
I feel like I recognize 4 names. Tim Murray, Jason, Rebecca, Carly.
I don't know Carly.
And then
personally.
Don't know much about John Kim and Nathan Black. But yeah, like you could have given your name out for these divisions as long as you had maybe an L1 and you were at an affiliate, maybe you could give your name. And then from there, I remember I got an email asking to vote. I didn't know half of the people that had given their names, but you could vote from there. So these are just what was voted by the community. And I don't even know if everyone received that email, if it's just people that have their level 1s and up that would receive that email. Not quite sure.
Lex is saying only 4 women and no women on the affiliate representation side, with a hand to the face. And we talked about that in our text. For there being 18 people voted and only 4 women, when CrossFit is very even male-female in the sport and in the methodology. You go to CrossFit gyms, you see as many women as you see men. You see as many women affiliate owners. I thought that was a little surprising.
And even like for the athlete side of things, like some of the standards that might be in place for the woman in terms of heights and things that you may not think about as a male athlete could be of interest in terms of on some of these teams. But
so Sarah Cooper's asking, do you know how many women applied? I saw the list. Did I have a time to go through it and like study how many women applied? It was a long list of people who applied. So I think just like any voting thing, name recognition gets you a long way in this.
yeah.
But yeah.
And I wonder if like this type of voting will happen every year or if these are the members for a certain amount of years. And what their engagement will be like with CrossFit, how often they'll meet and stuff like that. Like I'm curious to see what that follow through will actually be like this year. And if more people will present themselves the following years as they kind of know a little bit more about the position.
Patrick Clark comes in with Nathan Black as a games judge as well. So that gives him a different, unique perspective as well. Yeah, I hope it works. I know the last time they had these together, they didn't really seek much counsel from them. But I'm hoping that changes with this. And knowing a couple people on the list, I know they're either going to be vocal about not being included in decisions or talk to about decisions, or there's a couple that I could personally reach out to pretty easily and find out how it's going.
Yeah.
So anxious to know how this goes.
For sure.
The only thing I'm going to say about the female piece is that a lot of times on this show we talk, because we do have a female perspective. You and Jamie compete at the highest levels in the female division of this sport, and that sometimes the cap times or the weights aren't as accurate in depicting what should happen as the men's, because I think they use more male testers than they do female testers. And I hope that doesn't become a trend, because I hope that people are seeing this where, we're seeing that of the 30 athletes, 28 men finished it, but only 5 women. And so you are not getting the same stimulus if the men are finishing it and the women aren't.
It's just hard to find testers that are not currently competing, right? That's a difficult part. Is you almost need to hire a small team of, like, let's call it 2 male, 2 females that are not not affiliated with training camps, and you almost pay them during the season to not compete and be your testers for different stages. But if you're a good programmer, you should know, like, roughly time caps, and if you're looking at things within the CrossFit space, like, you should be able to make good calls on weights and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll get it wrong, but for the most part, if you're looking at things and seeing what's happening in the community, you should be a good enough programmer to do that, even without testers.
Yeah. Lex just let everybody know that she was on the DAC before. And Lynn was surprised. Yeah. And Lex will be open and honest and tell you that they didn't get to give a lot of input when she was there. So we'll see. So next up, I wanted to talk about, before we get into the rule book, which will take up most of the show, NorCal was added as an in-person qualifier, very last minute. In fact, the online qualifier for it had already started when it was named another in-person semifinal. Now, they did extend the due date for submissions for that to give more time, but the impact of this is that there are now 18 spots going to in-person qualifying events or semifinals, and there are only 12 from the online affiliate semifinal. So my question to you as an athlete, it seems like we're shrinking the holes to get through the qualification process from every angle. How do you feel as an athlete having a legit shot in making it to the games?
Me individually would be through the online portion. Like, I've always done extremely well online through the open. I've gone top 5 twice. I've won the Atlas Games online a few years ago. Like, I compete a lot online over the years. So, like, my route that I'm going to try to do is through an online portion. In person is going to be very difficult for top 2. Like, I don't see myself getting a top 2, like, at many of the events, especially if there's like 10, 15 athletes from all around the world at them. Like, I'm just speaking for myself and where I am in my career. Like, fitness wise, is I would try to do that. But I don't it's completely different than 2019 during the sanctional year, 2020, because you had the open in October and you had all of these sanctional events very spread out, and you had almost like many, many opportunities to do a lot of them. Now you have a season where you have the online a little bit towards a starter, like very, very close to a lot of the competitions. And it's basically going to come down to how much money you have, how much time do you have to travel to all these things. You can't do many of them. You really can't, because you can't go to Africa one weekend, then you go to Europe, then you go to North America. You have the online semifinals. So you have to pick and choose maybe at tops 3 at most. And even that I think would be very, very difficult. And if you pick the wrong one, you're shit out of luck. There's going to be a lot of athletes that will not qualify that think that they will. Like a very, very good like games athletes. Because top 12 online is not a gimme for any athletes besides maybe 3 or 4 of them on each, like male and females. The rest is all workout dependent of what it is online. So there a lot of people are banking on the online format, but they might find themselves having to travel to these events and just run out of time because you have all these events going on within not even 2 months of each other, pretty tight. You just can't go to all of them. So I think there's going to be and then I don't know who's actually competing, who's not. That's another thing, but like that's out of the control right now. But just in terms of qualification process, I think it's a very difficult one in terms of bubble athletes like myself for sure, because we're like, yeah. And it's very expensive. Like, it's just like, it's not worth it for me to travel to these places knowing that I'm most likely not getting top 2. Like I have work to do. I'm a teacher. Like I'm not going to go waste $1,000 or $2,000 to compete at a bunch of them.
And I think that's kind of the biggest change for me is, and Lex kind of says it here, and wasting money having to travel. You have one bad workout, you're out.
Yeah.
True. What we had last year was 2 big events, 20 people between the 2 events got to go. You had to pay for 1 trip as an athlete to go qualify. You still had to put your best foot forward. You couldn't have a bad weekend, but at least you had a realistic shot with what was it, 12 in the East and 8 in the West.
But you had the strength of field play a factor. Now the strength of field has no factor. You can go to a competition and the strength of field is significantly higher than another one, and you just happen to choose the wrong one where everyone was at. And then let's say you finish, I don't know, top 5 at that one. Doesn't matter. You need top 2. If, you know, like as long as no one that's going there has qualified previously through another competition. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't take into account the strength of field. Then you have restrictions on some regions and not in others, which you have three events that have restrictions. The one in Asia, the one then the East and the West one.
It's Africa and then the East and West.
Oh, yeah, Africa.
Yeah, Asia is open to the world.
Okay, yeah, Africa with the
Renegade Games.
Yeah, that's the one. Renegade Games, and then 2 of the North America ones being restricted there. But then the NorCal one that they added it right after the syndicate one. So like, let's say someone is right on the borderline of syndicate the following weekend. If you didn't get your spot there, like, are you just going to get an invite to NorCal? Are they going to accept different people that are high level athletes that were, let's say, 3rd or 4th place at syndicate and didn't qualify, and all of a sudden you have a field of 50 already at NorCal, and they're like, people are going to be looking and scrambling, and they're going to be asking all these people for their free invites because they're this person and they have this accomplishment. And it'll be just interesting to see what the event organizers do as these athletes didn't plan to not qualify online and all of a sudden are stuck and wanting to do all these competitions. And let's say they didn't do their qualifiers because they all qualified different ways.
Yep.
So it's just going to be interesting because, like I said, the sanctional season was spread out so much that you could pick multiple. And I just don't see people being able to do that many with them being so close together. And especially if people are banking on the online portion, then there's a few of them that are right before or right after, which means you don't really want to do those ones if you're banking on the online.
I have a follow-up to that, but I want to address a couple things in the comments real quick. And that is, Patrick Clark says, I had 6 athletes reach out to me, high-level semis athletes, to ask for help to find sponsors for this season. Lynn comes in with, yes, and a lot more GoFundMe's this season for sure. And then this one, Vi, is the Mayhem Classic only being for Mayhem athletes a real thing, or did that turn out to be false? I made that up last week when in my frustration and admitted it right afterwards that I was just making it up because these third-party competitions seem to be able to do whatever they want to do. So I was being facetious in that moment. If you've heard that elsewhere, sorry if I started something, but I was just trying to be over the top, making a point with that.
But like Patrick's right, like sponsorships is going to help a lot of these athletes. Like I don't have people that's paying my trips to go to any of this. So it's like, it's a lot of pocket. So it really comes down to, it's a rich sport, and it's who's living at home with, their parents and can afford to, or their significant others supports that they can just go and travel as they do this full time. And
so I have a question for you, because this was kind of a point I made at some point in one of my riffs, but I wanted to ask you this question. With the way that we have these multiple seasons now, and you can add reps ahead in that, you can have WFP, you can have the CrossFit Games season, then you have this off-season stuff that happens. Is it going to be on the athlete's responsibility to change the way they train? Like the days of going 6 hours a day and beating yourself into the ground to be ready for one competition 3 months from now, I think those days are gone now. It's going to be, you're going to have to be ready in some state more frequently through the year if you want to participate in all this stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in the space that overtrain though. Like there's so many people. I've always just trained all year long, and basically like I'm ready to go any competition anytime. Like I don't really have any huge peaks or huge times of the year that I'm feeling very, very unfit. But the way that people have trained, like they've taken huge off seasons, and I mean, most of them are like, oh, I'm not right. Like I'm not peaked for Rogue because I'm coming off the games. And I always think that's bullshit, because like Rogue has so much money on the line. And I just think people say that they're not ready, but like they're still training for all of these comps. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of people that overtrain. The season still is, for the majority of the part, you need to be ready in that May, June area. Like the open for most is the 1% is still pretty, quote, easy for the top athletes in the sport. So really you're thinking about the semis and like in that end of April, May, early June. So unless you're, Jeff, Tia, those athletes that doesn't matter for the programming, like most people are looking to peak at that point so that they can make their way to the, like even just qualify for these, main events like the games, because the field is just too deep to just show up there and hope for the best. And then most of the time the main event's been in August. So you still can take an off season, like right after that a little bit. Or I would say most of the off season for most people should probably be around that November, December, early January.
Unless you're part of the WFP, and that's when their championship is.
So that's what I'm saying. So right after that December time, but you just have to choose, like, are you doing Wodapalooza in January, or are you going to like, because that one technically is not involved within any of the spaces right now. So you just have to choose what do you value, where you can compete and stuff.
I always hear people say, we want to professionalize the sport. We want to professionalize the sport. And then when people start to professionalize the sport or try to, we all go to this, well, I can't peak for this or I can't peak for that. Well, if you want to professionalize the sport, most professional sports go weekly or bi-weekly for a period of time during the year, and then you get an off season. Like your hockey season, you played multiple games a week. right? And then you did get an off season.
But the off season, you're training more in the off season than during the year. You mostly just maintained and you weren't training as much. Like our sport's kind of different because our sport is working out, which is different than like skill-based sports, or because you can take an off season away from the sport while still training.
Right.
If that makes sense. And most of the time your off season is when you're working super hard and just kind of building your base and building your strength so that you can maintain it within your sport. It's hard to know, but I think for the most part, like if you just stay at a volume and you listen to your body and you stay injury free, like you should be able to throw down almost whenever you want. Like not necessarily like do competitions every weekend, because I think that's very, very hard on the central nervous system. But if you went like once every month or two, I don't think that would kill people. It's just money wise. It's just so expensive.
Yeah. And
it's not worth it.
There just aren't any sponsors out there right now. And CrossFit says time to sell feet pics for him. So yeah, you got to find a way, I guess. Judy Reed, it's a positive that there are more opportunities now for athletes to compete and make money. I agree. And I don't think it's bad that we change the way it's trained. I do think there's so much overtraining that maybe this is a way to get a little more balance and you actually compete more than you train. No, that didn't come out right, but
I know what you mean though. I mean, it makes sense. And there are a lot of opportunities for people to, compete and get a name for themselves. And, you pick and choose maybe like 3 or 4 main competitions during the year. Like you can easily do that.
Well, all these athletes that have signed up for the World Fitness Project are doing 3 comps for sure. Most of them, if you're listening to them on different podcasts, are doing the game season. That means they're doing some form of a semifinal and the games and those 3. Nobody's turning down a free trip to Rogue.
No.
And then you've got Wodapalooza. So it's starting to pile up. And you're just going to have, Dallin said this on Beyond the Whiteboard or Around the Whiteboard. You have to train smarter if you're going to take on this volume of competitions.
I agree. Like you have to train smarter. You have to listen to your body. People just overtrain.
Patrick says the new formats with WFP and games benefit the Europeans who do compete a lot. Probably because they've been training the right way for that style. And Larry, even though I'm an advocate for athletes being always ready, it still costs money for not many spots. It does.
Yeah, that's why like a lot of athletes need to have a part-time or a full-time job, because like there's no beside now, like this WFP has some guaranteed money, but it's not that much that you have like a yearly income from that, like unless you have additional sponsorship. So like you have a lot of athletes that are going all in for a few years. Like you need more money than what even is out there, because it's not that much. Like besides the top few, you're not making much in CrossFit. Like you have to find the right competitions that are worth paying where you can get money back.
I think what the WFP has done is made it to pay for your travel.
Essentially.
Yeah. So you can at least go to these events and have that compensated. And then if you do well, you can make more. But we will, we'll see. And we have WFP later on the rundown, so we'll get to that in a second. What we're gonna, Sarah, we're gonna get to the frog grip stuff in a second. I assure you, it's in the rulebook stuff we have, which we're starting now. So 2025 CrossFit Games rulebook came out this week. These are my takeaways. If Carolyne has other ones she wants to throw in, it's all fine. Some of these are very obvious details, but I just wanted them out there. The first one is the Open is still $20. They did not raise the registration for the Open. It's still $20.
I think that's good.
The top 1% from the Open go to semifinals. Age group top 2% or 200, whichever is greater. There are no regions. And then I did put in parentheses, unless an in-person semifinal wants to use the region, which 3 of them already have invoked.
For the 1%, does it say whether it's 1% of people doing, it's 1% of like the people doing the elite, right? You don't count any of the masters that don't have the same workouts, right? Do you know what I mean?
So I would say it's everybody doing the same workout, because when you sign up for the Open,
it's in your
if
division.
you are 54 or younger, you're doing the same workout RX.
Yeah.
And so you would all be put into an elite leaderboard. Now they may be also split off into another leaderboard for another competition, but that counts as part of your overall number.
Cool.
They've added a 70+ division. We affectionately like to call that the Lana Marcine rule here on our show. She has been advocating that for the last 2 years. She got it as a tryout last year at the games. They did not consider them champions, but they did let them participate. Now this year they get the full kit and caboodle. There are no judging qualifications needed for Open videos, which kind of blew my mind, because none for the Open, but when you get to the semis, it's ridiculous what all you need. Larry's saying, Carolyne, cardio up, deadlift for the lift could be your moneymaker. Yes, we have some kind of lift this year.
I don't even deadlift ever. I rarely do it.
Open videos must be made public, and you must own all the content on the videos. And I think this is a big one. So that means you cannot play music that you do not own.
When they say public, does that mean I can't put it on unlisted, but then put my link and it appears publicly? If you know how, last year, for instance, you still have it on, you can do, you insert the link unlisted, but because you're entering it in the page, it's your video still pops up because the link is there, but it's not public on your YouTube. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It makes sense, but the verbiage in the rule book says must be made public, and public is a status, unlisted is a status, private is a status.
Because the leaderboard is going to be locked. The reason I'm asking is because the leaderboard will be locked and you won't know scores. But if you have to put it public on YouTube, you're going to start seeing a lot of scores on YouTube being uploaded earlier on, unless people just will change it after they've submitted and put it public. That's another way to think about that, I guess.
I think it has to be. I mean, I wouldn't risk it. I'd ask.
That's the thing. It's I don't want to risk it, but at the same point, at the same time, I feel like the scores are going to be so secretive that you don't want to have it just hanging around on your YouTube publicly before the deadline. If you're a top athlete.
Yeah.
Unless you don't.
I mean, you could switch it over to public if you want to risk it 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
Or Sarah says, I'm pretty sure you can schedule a time to publish it.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know all that.
She is right. You can do that. But I think the music thing's going to be big because you can actually get a 0 score if they can't hear anything because the music, if you get a strike from YouTube, they will remove all sound.
Mhm.
And that means you can't hear the introduction. You can't hear any of the stuff, and you would get a 0.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility as an athlete when you're submitting your video to make sure that it's viewable in, in the regions around the world, and like it can be played before you submit it, because we've seen that before where people sent links and they weren't the right ones and their season ended.
Yeah. New scoring is the video is either good video, valid with penalty, 0 score, or invalid. And the difference between 0 score and invalid is if you get a 0 score, all your other scores remain on the leaderboard. If you get an invalid, all of your scores are removed from the leaderboard.
So you wouldn't get a level for your next competition, which is the Community Cup, for instance, because for the Community Cup, you need all 3 scores.
Correct. Appeals will be handled a different way this year. You'll actually get a link in the email with them questioning or telling you you've been penalized. You have to click on that link now to appeal. Semifinals, individual and age groups must complete workouts at an affiliate if you're doing the online one. The leaderboard will be blind until the conclusion of the competition.
I do like that.
All athletes who qualify for the CrossFit Games will have to follow drug testing instructions provided by CrossFit. If they do not, they will be disqualified. So there's still drug testing even for the online semifinal.
They're essentially, once the online semifinal is going to be over, the athletes that have qualified need to pass some sort of drug test before going to the actual games. That's going to be it.
Well,
it's a joke.
Well, it's not. CrossFit's going to give you instructions on how to submit your sample.
Yeah.
Or they're going to come out collect it.
Just give your information. Someone's going to 24 hours before they arrive, and then you have 24 hours to give them a time when you're ready for the drug test. Yeah. Great.
D-Read is the reason for public to get more eyes on the videos and adhere to standards. Yeah, they're actually in the rule book encouraging judges to judge the videos that are public. And if the video gets enough goods, it will move on as a good video. If there are an X number of with penalties or zeros or invalidated, then someone at CrossFit will then check that to make a final determination.
Yeah. Sometimes when I see people judging the videos, like they don't understand like good with modifications and invalid. Like so many times people hit invalid and they have no idea that it's not an invalid video if there's no reps. And people will be like, oh, invalid. Like the only way it's invalid is if the video doesn't open, it's not the right workout. They come out of the screen. There is modifications to the video, but when there's like no rep or like it's not even the workout, but like when people have no reps, people will be like invalid. It's like that part always like, I'm like, did you guys take your judges course?
So back when they opened it before, you had to sign in and prove that you were a qualified judge, that you had taken the course and do all that kind of stuff. And then you went into a certain portal and it would just feed you videos. You didn't even get to pick. It would just send you this, like you'd get one from the Ukraine. You'd get one from Iceland. Like I never got any from someone I knew when I was doing.
That's how it should be, because or else you just go judge your friend's video and you're like, good. Your competition's video modification.
Now, does that mean that's what they're doing this time? I have no idea. But back in like 15, 16, maybe 17, when I was doing it, you went into a certain portal and they just fed you the video. You didn't even get to pick who you were judging. They just came at you.
But now it's just the semifinals that's like that, right? Not the open. Or the open, are they public videos for a certain, for the top 1% or no? Just the semis.
What's that again?
The open, is there also like videos being public in the open, or is it just semis?
I believe it's both.
I would love to see, now I know people will disagree with me, where the open scores as well as the semifinal scores are all in one leaderboard of the athletes that have done both in one leader. You erase everyone else that affects, because now you have, let's say, 9 scores. Because like the open workouts, like let's say I beat 3 people or like a bunch of people there on those 3 workouts. Like those 3 workouts to me are like still valid enough. Like they're different style of workouts versus like just like being like, oh, you've moved on to the next, but now you won't see burpees and thrusters and chest to bars. You're going to see something else. But so let's say I get beat the next part on this other type of workout, but I still beat a bunch of people at this style of workouts. Like, why can't that still be relevant? Then you actually make the open count, especially if the videos are public. Make it so it's 9 workouts. Now you got a bigger. Now the open matters even more. Then there's a lot more workouts at play for the qualification to go to the games. You have to be. It's like basically 9 scores, or like I would like that.
Using logic again.
I know people will disagree because they're like, oh, those workouts in the open don't matter, but you kick out everyone that has not made it through the 1%, and only a leaderboard with open and the semifinals combined, because they're different tests. And that's the one thing about CrossFit that I don't get is like, oh, you've dwindled out different athletes, but those tests are still important. It's like doing a speed test, like a sprint test, let's say, as a few months prior, and you're like, oh, we won't test speed now because we've already tested it, but here are new events. But you were shitty at speed, like at sprinting, but doesn't matter now. You were just good enough that you moved on. Now we'll erase that. Like, I would like that to be added.
Train to Live, I think that's exactly what she's saying.
Yes.
Add the open scores to the semifinal scores
and
to give you
the top 12 of the top 12 of all of those scores are going on. Because to me, that's way more complete test.
Yeah. I think to do that, you would have to then put the semifinal judge rules on the open so that they are judged identically. But other than that, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I just never understand why you just go back to 0 at the next event, and everything you've done prior doesn't matter. Like, it makes no sense. Like, I beat these people at this test. I am significantly better than you at this. I suck at this, but I beat you at all of these. But it doesn't matter because at this stage, I didn't do well at that workout, so I'm out. But I beat you, let's say, at 8 of the 9 workouts or 6 out of the 9. Like, to me, it just makes no sense in terms of that's overall fitness. It's not just erasing everything. And now you can't program bar muscle ups again because you've done it in the open. So you got to do something else. But it was still that test was still valid.
Train to Live says he agrees with that point. So I want to hit Andrew here because he's our active judge. Videos are rarely ever invalidated, even when there are times they should be. And I know he has done online judging before for CrossFit. So he would know more than most of us. And in addition, the one thing with videos that blows my mind is the number of people who don't use an app like WeTime or WODproof. Put your name and a clock on the video instead of relying on a gym clock. And it never goes out of sight because it stays in the corner the whole time.
I like seeing the clock.
Well, you can do both.
Yeah, it's just hard timing it sometimes.
Yeah, because I know at Jamie's when we were there for one of her quarters or semis, like we started the clock right when her WeTime started to make sure that she could always see it as something to go off of.
And yeah, some of those apps aren't free too.
Yeah, especially since all elements get tested at the games, it would give a more complete look at the athletes. Lynn is with you, Carolyne.
Well, great. I didn't think a lot of people would be agreeing with me there, but I just think to me, it makes no sense that everything that you do in past, prior just gets erased. And it's like, oh, new slate. Only this counts. Especially if it's going to be all in online. portion, like the semifinals and the open or online portion. So make that one test. The in-person, that's another thing.
And the clock is readable instead of 50 feet away on a back wall.
Yes.
So we'll keep going through this. All video will be open for public review. We kind of beat that to death. Affiliates must appoint a head judge to oversee all the workouts at their affiliate. And that is a new requirement for the in-affiliate semifinal. Is every affiliate must have a head judge that oversees all of them, and they must introduce themselves in every video.
Does it have to be the same one? That's my getting timing wise, like scheduling of 2 people now is so annoying.
As long as they meet these requirements, because these are the requirements for the head judge: must hold an active L1, must have completed the 25 judges course, must have completed the advanced judges course, and must be on site to intro each video during each workout of the competition. I think you could have multiple, but you have to meet all those requirements.
I don't love that part. I think it's very difficult to find like 2 people every time that you want to do the workout that are available with those qualifications for a quick weekend of doing, let's call it 5 workouts, 6 workouts. Like, it's just tough to get those people to come back.
Yeah, I think for smaller affiliates, this is very difficult. You're bigger, like CrossFit Polaris. We have lots of people that meet those criteria every year.
Same with my gym. I would say that most of them will do. We have a bunch of them that will have their level 1 and level 2s because we host level 1s and 2s, and we'll get a lot of people that do the judges course, but still scheduling. And I just think about other people that will have trouble scheduling 2 people that have all those qualifications, like the head judge and the judge, or the 2 people, whatever it is.
They are responsible for spot checking judges as they judge athletes, ensure video setups and floor requirements are met. Prior to the competition starting, CrossFit Games staff will hold an online workout briefing. It is recommended all judges view the online workout brief. That's new too. And I actually think that's a good thing.
I mean, yeah, you
so
should.
The floor judge, the one judging each individual athlete, their requirements are they must have completed, they must have a current L1 or higher, must complete the 25 judges course, must complete the advanced judges course. And then teams may require multiple or 2 floor judges for an event.
Definitely for synchro work, they're going to have 2 people, but I still think that's difficult.
Yeah.
Some of it's a money grab to get more people to do their L1s, their L2s, their judges course, all of that. I mean, I get it. It's a business.
Andrew says, I think it's mostly for the training camps that do large in-person events, but it hurts the regular affiliates. Patrick Clark, I love how they expect all these head judges to do something that took Chuck Boz, etc., years to perfect. I do not disagree.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. If I have another judge that's just in the background making sure that the judges is they're not Chuck and Boz and people like that. They're just gonna be there introducing themselves, and then most of the people that are gonna grab these judges are just gonna have someone that has their level 1 or whatever introduce, and then they're gonna be off camera and just the one judge.
Train to Live. I get why they're pushing the judges to have an L1, but I think if the athlete is comfortable having a judge that has taken both courses, that should be acceptable.
I don't know how the L1 even plays a the L1 is talking about technical movements and how to perform the 9 foundational movements and nutrition stuff. It has nothing to do with the judges stuff. I guess points of performance, but the L1 that you wouldn't get in the judges course and the advanced judges course.
This is the biggest. When I became a judge, this was the hardest thing for me. The L1 teaches you how to move well.
Yeah.
In competition, nobody cares if you move well.
Exactly.
Did you meet the standards of that movement? It's that. And so you almost have to deprogram the L1 to then become a judge, because it doesn't matter how ugly it is. If they get their chest to the floor on a burpee and they come up and their hips are extended, it's a clean burpee, whether they looked horrible in between all that or not.
That's why I don't get, like, I don't understand the L1 in terms of, the L1 course is like, what is CrossFit and what are the nine foundational, like the L2 is more how to coach it and like the points of performance, but it doesn't necessarily matter. Just there's more money for the. I do love the courses. Like I have my L2 and I learn so much at both of them, and they're great courses. I just don't know how that makes people better judges.
I agree. I love the courses. I have taken my L1 twice. But in all honesty, I don't think the L1 does anything to make you a better in-person judge.
Especially if they have an online judges course that's more advanced now, and hopefully has more of those athletes that are actually riding the line, which is what we do as elite athletes. We're just on the right side, hopefully, of the line because we're racing, versus the very obvious judges course that just like, exactly what the no rep is. Like, that's not what we see with the top athletes. It's way more gray than that. Patrick, that's more valuable than an L1.
Experience doing live judging is more valuable, in my opinion.
For sure.
And the L1 and the speed at which you athletes move is so different than what you see at an L1 or in the affiliate.
Which is why the advanced judges course is a phenomenal idea. Love that they've added something like that, because I don't think that the regular judges course is enough for those fast moving athletes.
And just because he said I'm right, you judge to the standards set by the competition. Trying to live, it sucks. I've worked in fitness for over 12 years, and I've always taken the judges course, and now I can't judge this year. You can judge in the open. You just can't judge semis. All right. So that is the judging requirements. Games qualifying spots. Individual will get 30 men and 30 women. Masters 35 to 39 through 55 to 59 will get 30 men and 30 women. 60 to 69 will get 20 and 20, and 70 plus will get 10 and 10. I'm glad they brought that down a little bit from last year. Being at the Masters Games, that was a little tough. Teenage divisions 30 and 30, and teams top 20. And excuse me while I blow my nose for a second.
Yeah, I think those are pretty good numbers. I still think some of the teenage and masters could maybe even go to 20 on some of the divisions, but pretty good.
All right, I'm back. Backfills for drug suspension will only go 3 athletes outside the qualification position. If an athlete does not decline their invite, there's no backfill. And then we go to grips. And I have an Instagram video somewhere here from Victory Grips.
Okay there, Scott? Yeah, I think the grip one is to be determined on what they'll do with that. But I mean, having added that terminology is interesting.
There's additional language in the rule book this year that applies to grips. Previously, it just said that the grip surface cannot be tacky or sticky. This year, there is an additional language that says grips must be made of a material that provides hand protection, but not additional grip advantage. Grips are made of either leather, synthetic leather, or rubber. The rubber-based grips are really popular because they do provide additional grip advantage. They are really sticky on the bar. So could rubber-based grips be banned in the CrossFit Games? There's nothing in the rulebook that specifies which material is banned. However, I'm going to reach out to CrossFit to get some clarification. And also, does this apply to just the games, or does it apply to the open and the semifinals, the in-person qualifiers? There's still some questions that need to be answered. So I'm going to reach out to CrossFit and get some clarification and report back.
Very interesting. I'm interested on that one, on what they'll say. If that's what they meant by the verbiage of the not adding additional, I guess, sticky things, because those rubber grips definitely are very sticky. I don't use them. I've used Bear Complex almost my entire career, and when I had at a local competition, someone give me a pair of rubber grips, and since then, like, the frog grips came out, and it's been very, very popular in our space to use those grips. And when I went onto the bar, I was like, whoa, you're like stuck. And now all of a sudden people are entering the competition floor and they bring towels and they're wiping down the freaking bars and get all the chalk off. And I'm like, what is going on with these grips? But it's similar to the NorCal competition where you're like, oh, let's add this NorCal, and oh, the qualifiers are tomorrow. To me, if you're adding a rule that would change some of your sponsors or like big companies in the space, and just be like, oh, here's the rule book right now, right before the season. Oh, the grips that you've been making, you won't be able, none of your athletes can use them now. Like, I feel like you should be communicating those type of changes well in advance if it's going to affect some of your sponsors and stuff like that. But curious as to what they'll say, and if that's what they meant by the sticky stuff, because the rubber grips are completely different to me and definitely are a game changer for sticking onto the bar.
CrossFit says, I bet the RX Smart Gear guy complained after his grips got bounced last year. He mentioned the rubber grips then. Well, what they did was actually they did skate the line. It has been in the rules forever that you cannot use a dowel grip that is a traditional gymnastics grip. They basically sewed the leather over top itself to make it like a dowel that hooked onto the bar. That's very different than a rubber grip. Now, I would say the dowel probably grips even more because you're actually like hooking it, and it would have like a little hook underneath to hold on, where the rubber grip, I have a pair of rubber grips. They definitely make a difference. I can do more reps with them than I can with my Bear Complex leather grips, for sure. But the dowel, I think what he did last year was even more over the line, if you want to say that.
I just think if you
if
you add something like that to the rule book, I think that's something that you communicate in advance. Just like you don't throw on NorCal Classic after you've announced your competitions and you're like, hey, the qualifiers right now. And then another one of your competitions for WODFest is like, oh, Wodapalooza is right now. I guess we'll extend our qualifier as well. Like, it just seems like there's a lot of last minute changes, which I don't like with that. But I guess, yeah, to be continued on that topic and what will go on with that. Because there's a lot of athletes that are sponsored by frog grips right now, I think, in the space. It's like they took over a big part of the market for grips. Because back then it was mostly Victory and Bear Complex were like the main, and RX Smart Gear that were like the main three. But
yeah, we'll see. Because there was a big deal made of them last year about the length and all of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
The length is still in the rules, that it cannot be at full extension above the top of the finger. But that was kind of ignored when you got to the games last year.
like I personally feel like the grips that are rubber are a little bit like cheating. That was and I always like roll my eyes of the athletes that bring their towels to wipe down all the chalk on the bars. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting ridiculous. But I think it's going to be hard to implement. I mean, I guess you could just show your grips before. I guess it wouldn't be that hard, but to me, it's just like you either allow grips or you don't, maybe. But
Larry says, I have death grips, little pin in them, way less than those sticky grips. Just saying, have both, but my gymnastics, it doesn't matter, so I choose none. I'm with you, Larry. Like, the little bit of help that the sticky grips give me is not even going to make me come close to anybody else on the gymnastics bar. So it just helps me string more together in a workout and get a better workout. I'm not competing in that stuff, so I'll do what I want. There you go. Real sports provide a runway with equipment getting banned 6, 12, 18 months. Yeah. Not 2 days before the season starts. And then is it cheating if everybody can use them?
no, that's what I'm saying is like, if it's been fair game, I just chose not to use them, but I could.
Yeah.
I do think it's an advantage though. Like it does make a difference. Just like flopping the grips over make a difference versus putting your like fingers, I guess, in the holes and creating that little thingy, and like the way you use your grips make a difference on where it's pulling on your wrist and how much you're using your grip strength. But yeah.
And me too, Larry. I give out before the equipment as well. Allocation of prize money. So with all open registrations, 50% of the money earned on those registrations will go to prize money throughout the season. So if the example they use is if 300,000 people sign up for the open, that's $6 million. $3 million of that would go into prize money throughout the season. The open would get affiliate prizes split between participation and performance, 20%. The open top individual performers would get 5%. Individual semifinals would get 3%. Individual games get 49%. Affiliate cup games teams, 10%. Masters, 10%. And adaptive, 3%. So I know if Jamie were here, she'd have a lot to say about the 10% masters. And I will tell you her argument, because we had this in a text string yesterday, that the 35 to 49-year-old divisions of masters make up approximately 50% of open registrations. So the people putting in all the money are only getting 10% of the cash prize. Now she's not asking for 50%. She was just like, hey, could we get 20? And that is her argument. And because they only pay first, second, and third in all the masters divisions, she just thinks it should go to 5th or 6th place.
I do like the 20% back to the affiliates. I think that's a great idea. And they get like $2,500 to Rogue to buy more equipment. Not exactly sure how those spots are, or how those prizes are allocated in terms of, it says like high performers and
By participation.
by participation. Yeah. It would be nice that maybe a few of them are at random, just to allow some of the smaller gyms to also benefit from possibly getting some equipment from Rogue for free. Like if you had, half of those 20% are most participation or whatever, but then like someone said like Sarah said, like it might just end up going to those big gyms again that already have a ridiculous amount of equipment. So grabbing some maybe at random would be nice.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But I do like that.
I like the idea of it. Hopefully it'll play out that like the prizes don't go to Invictus and Mayhem and all of those people, but never know.
For me, it was more the breakdown of like the individual games field that I didn't really like as much. The top gets a lot more, like the top athlete that wins gets a lot. I would just like to see it just be spread a little bit better throughout the rest of the athletes, because it is, I mean, yeah, winners get more, but I think you could give a little bit more down the line.
So what Carolyn's talking about is
It pays to win.
If it was the 300,000 registrations for the Open, first would get 7,500. Second would only get 73,500. Then 58,800, 51,400, 25,700. And when you get to 11th place, it's down to 12,000. And then it stops at 20. So only the top 20 get paid, and that's 3,675. But that is more than they paid out last year.
For one place.
Right.
For one place.
Right.
The rest of them aren't, I don't think.
I'd have to go back and look. I know it was a steep drop off. I'm not sharing the screen. I can.
Because like second place was like 100 and something. Like there's a big difference between the rest.
So I will blow this up. There you go, Lynn. Those are the top places.
So in 2024, the first place at the CrossFit Games was $315,000. The second place was $125,000. The third place was $85,000. Fourth was 60. Fifth through eighth was 45, 50, 35, 32. Like all 40th place got money. Here in the way that they said it, they stopped at 21st, but the 21st place in this one last year had 7,000. So, I mean,
yep.
You can't tell me that, yeah, you got one person Tia's getting more money, or Laura, Jeff is going to get more money, the winners, but the rest of the field is making actually way less. So,
yeah. Now, who knows what the registration is going to be? I don't know who said that. I think it was Train to Live. So they are praying people sign up for the Open. I think the athletes are praying that people sign up for the Open
sure.
Because it makes the pot bigger that they can earn. And I will tell you, the last 2 years, there have been more than 300,000 people registered for the Open. I think last year was like 370, and the year before that was 340. But there's been all this speculation that not as many people would be signing up this year. So who knows what that's going to mean to overall registrations, and whether or not it's going to impact the prize purse.
I do like that they gave that information though on where the percentages of the $20 is going. I think that is better communication than they've done in the past. So I think that was a positive that they put, because normally we don't really know where the money is coming from. They didn't have to give us that information. They did, but I think that was interesting to see where they are going to be putting it.
Patrick says, this is what happens when you lose sponsors and decide not to give title rights to sponsors. Haven't seen many vids from athletes begging fans to sign up yet.
We can't sign up yet.
I have seen a lot of video or advertisements on social media from CrossFit about L1s, the open, things like that. So they're doing a push from CrossFit, but I have not seen anything from athletes. Sarah says, Lambre better be eating her words. What have the affiliates done for athletes? Be your payday. Again, I think that was taken a little out of context.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that.
That clip that went viral, if you listen to the whole interview, she goes on. I mean, she's an affiliate owner. She's not trying to bash the affiliates. They were just trying to make a point in one piece, but she could have chose her words better in that sentence. But I think it was taken out of context for sure.
I think so too.
T-Bird says, think they're trying to make it so to win is very profitable. So people are going to want to try and win, which means people will still register.
We'll see.
Okay. And we'll move on from that. I think that pretty much sums up. Oh, the Dave Castro video on the Community Cup. We're running late, so I'm just going to tell you the way that the seeding happens and the way you get your level is it's based on percentile. So wherever you finish percentile wise, in the open, if you're in the 50th percentile, that's a level 5, 50th to 59. If you're 60 to 69, that's level 6, and so on and so forth. The divisions are like two groups of those levels. So 10 and 9 are one group, 8 and 7.
Advanced.
Right. Intermediate, rookie. So they all have like a different division. And then that's how you will compete in the Community Cup. If you go to the Dave Castro Instagram, he explains it out with a whiteboard and a marker. And it's pretty simple the way he does it.
It's essentially the quarterfinals from last year, but everyone can play at their own level.
Yeah. So then we also have the WFP making announcements this week. And I hate shortchanging this, but we'll just have to get into more detail next week. They announced where their tour events are going to be and when they're going to be. So the first tour event for WFP is in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it will be May 9th through the 11th, which is also the same days as the French Throwdown. So all of the European athletes who are in the WFP and will have to travel to Indianapolis, Indiana, based on their contract, will not be able to do the French Throwdown if they were choosing to do that anyway. Tour event 2 will be in Phoenix or Mesa, Arizona. They said Phoenix/Mesa. It's all kind of one hub in there. August 29th to the 31st. And the finals will be December 18th to the 21st in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yeah, and that tour event 1, not only is it during French Throwdown, but it's literally the weekend after the online semifinal. So if you're a European athlete, you're probably going to be doing it. You know, you've already traveled to somewhere in North America, in Indiana, and you'll probably be doing the online semifinals there because you don't want to be doing the online semifinals at your home affiliate and then traveling to North America for this first one. And if you're a North America athlete, you know, you're going to go back-to-back weekends and you're going to go try to do your online semifinals, probably repeat some workouts to try to qualify through that online semifinals, and right away go into your first competition, which is not ideal because let's say the last workout is May 4th or May 5th for the online semifinals. You're going back-to-back right there into the next part. And then let's say you didn't get in that top 12 spot and you're hoping to do both seasons. It's going to be very difficult because now all of a sudden you got to start looking at competitions right after your first event in Indiana. And you only have 3 more weekends. So it's pretty tight,
Yeah.
which is why like it's people are going to have to kind of choose.
And that's why I asked you the question, do we need to start training differently? If you want to play in this pro sport now, we have more opportunities. It's going to be crammed. What I'm excited about is Mayhem and Syndicate Crown are drivable for me. Indianapolis, Indiana is a 2-hour drive for me. The Masters CrossFit Games and Teen CrossFit Games are in Columbus, Ohio, right here in my hometown. And Phoenix Mesa is there's direct flights from Columbus all the time, and they're super cheap. So those are at least a handful of events that I can get to fairly cheaply. So I'm excited about that. I know PC's in here talking about the European athletes and all they have to pay, which is way more than what I'm going to have to pay this year. But I'm excited that I get to go to a lot of in-person events pretty easily. And in addition to that, there was an announcement a day or two ago, maybe Reps Ahead Pro 6 is on the board. What a lineup.
Great lineup.
This will be at Wodapalooza. And the headliner for the men is Jason Hopper versus Dallin Pepper. And the workout does contain an echo bike.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see once and for all who is the king of the echo bike. And then Emma Lawson and Alex Kazan are going for the women as the headliner there. And I'm sure Patrick knows more than I do, but they said there is an undercard that is still to be announced.
Cool. Yeah, great lineup.
And it is on the final night of the individual events. After the last individual event goes, then the Reps Ahead crew will hit the floor and do their event. So, and he said, yep, just waiting on one signature.
My signature, Patrick? Just kidding.
There was a question for you. I don't want to skip over that. Where's it at? Oh, Train to Live. Is Carolyne going to play in the WFP?
I'll try to do some online stuff. Yeah. I have to qualify for it. I think it's going to be very hard to do the top 10, but I do like those time of the year better for me. Like the August one, I'm off for school, so that already is better. But yeah, I'll try. I don't know when. I didn't see when the dates are for the qualifier though, but
They're 6 weeks before each event.
oh, gotcha. I mean, I like competing. I don't like wasting my money to travel, so I try to find things normally that I can be smart with my money. But I'm just, yeah, like I've always just competed and done stuff, so I'll try to do it.
You are not undercard material, Carolyne. Don't worry, we will talk. Another question for you. Carolyne, are you doing all the rogue challenges this year?
Every year. I like you'll see me in a bunch of online stuff. I find I like doing stuff. It just keeps me motivated. Like I like if I don't have competitions or if I don't have different things to train for, I mentally struggle to just kind of stay in it. So that's why like I just kind of compete all year round, stay fit. I enjoy it.
T-Bird, missed the beginning. Did you guys talk about AFJ seminar right before WADA? We actually talked about that, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, pretty in depth. So it was on our episode about 2 weeks ago. But yeah, they are holding a judges seminar right before Wodapalooza goes live. It is the first time that has ever happened, and it's a way to train. And then they will be also grading judges starting at Wodapalooza.
I think that's a great idea, though. I saw that Brent with the PFA had posted, like they're looking for athletes that are high level to kind of help with these seminars to be moving fast. And yeah, I think giving more judges experience is going to be good, and having some in-person seminars where, you know, you're getting graded on judging is awesome. Great idea.
We need a full-on Q&A show with Carolyne. We can make that happen. I can facilitate. T-Bert says, I'll go back and watch. Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks ago, right?
I'm not sure. I think maybe last week. Not sure.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
But I know we did talk about it for sure. Cause that's how I came up. Yeah, I think that's all that's on our docket for tonight. And we hit right at 9:30 as always. Next week, we're going to talk about Wodapalooza more in depth, as it will be kicking off 2 weeks from last Thursday. And maybe we'll hit those. Maybe we'll hit that AFJ thing a little bit next weekend and talk about that. Maybe we'll put a little segment in the next week's show, Ask Carolyne or Ask Jamie, the two athletes, and let you two just have like 15 minutes for that. Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions between now and then, throw those in the chat or the comments to the show.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah. Both like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening on Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes or Google, any of those podcast platforms, make sure to give us a 5-star review because we love to hear from you. With that, we will bid you all a great week. I'll be back here tomorrow for lunch with the Clydesdale for just an informal conversation tomorrow. And we will see you all then. Thank you so much for being here. We love you all. Bye, guys.